let's face it, man. The 50s were rife with a bunch of shitty movies. One the greatest time for genre fare. If you made a sci-fi movie or a horror movie, you were pretty much making a stinker, almost 100% guaranteed.
Yeah.
But there are a few exceptions. A few, I tell you.
God damn it, the Twonky?
Yeah. Nobody would.
No one's gonna get that.
Dude, the fucking Twonky sucks.
Look it up. It's
By
garbage.
the way, recently the Twonky had an anniversary, I think. And they released like a DVD or a Blu-ray, and I was like, "Who wants a fucking Twonky Blu-ray?"
Somewhere in the world, like at the end of Indiana Jones, there's a warehouse full of Twonkies.
Yeah, dude, that's a true terror. Forget the Ark of the Covenant, you open a Twonky, you die. Anyway, the Twonky's a fucking movie that sucks, and you should never watch it. I don't know if it came out in the 50s, but it sure as hell felt like it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, there were shows and movies that did change the landscape. And I think one of the most notable ones is one that, well, you saw the movie version of it, which came out in the 60s, but I'm talking about Nigel Neal's Quatermass in the Pit show. That was definitely one of the big influential moments in TV genre fare. I'd like to point out another one of those very important movies, and it's an oft forgotten, I wouldn't say it's disregarded, but it is kind of overlooked quite a bit. And that's probably because it's from the fucking 50s. Not a lot of people remember this vague, kind of shitty era in filmmaking for genre films anyway. But yeah, man, this movie is called Night of the Demon. Not to be mistaken with the 80s Night of the Demon series. And definitely not with the Shannon Elizabeth remake. Although I approve of Shannon Elizabeth. Yeah. 2009, Shannon Elizabeth plays Angela. Anyway, it has nothing to do... I hope so.
Yeah.
But anyway, I haven't seen it. But the point is, it has nothing to do with those, though it's similarly titled. Night of the Demon is actually based on a short story called Casting of the Runes by a guy whose name, I swear, is backwards. Montague Rhodes James.
Complete ass bag.
Dude, that name is like backwards.
Not only is it backwards, but you sound like a complete asshead.
Yeah, if a guy named Montague came up to me, I'd want to punch him in the fucking face.
And then you add two names to it?
If he offered me biscuits and tea, then maybe. But I think he carries an elephant gun and shoots elephants square in the face, which is not cool. Anyway, it was written by this chap. And the movie itself is very loosely based on the story. But here's the important thing. This movie kind of made a big impact on some of the big-ass names of horror. John Carpenter being one of the notable ones. Stephen King and Sam Raimi. Two of those guys easily called masters of horror. And then there's Sam Raimi. You know, and I'm not saying that, you know, he's only directed a few horror movies, really, if you think about it. But they're great. The point is, this is a movie that had quite an impact. In case you're wondering which movie it influenced in Sam Raimi's oeuvre, it's Drag Me to Hell, which is possibly just kind of like a more comedy and effects-oriented version of Night of the Demon.
It has more hags in it.
Definitely more hags, which is always a fucking plus for us anyway. But yeah, this is a movie, Night of the Demon, that also has two different cuts. Well, two different well-known cuts. The British cut and the American cut called Curse of the Demon, which excises about 10 minutes of movie. But it's also a movie rife with controversy because the director pretty much was like, fuck this movie because of this one thing the producer did. What was that one thing? Add effects. Demon effects. The movie's called Night of the Demon, after all.
He was mad that there was a demon in
it. The director's preference would have been for the demon to be more of a suggestion than actually be seen. I think we can both agree that this movie benefits most from having the demon in it. I know that's kind of like not what your more I guess snooty minds in horror would say.
The demon should be.
Honestly, there should be a payoff to this movie. And I'm more of the mind that the movie should be without the demon at the beginning to make the payoff more valuable. But I also think the movie works exceptionally well with the demon at the beginning. Either way, you're going to see the movie with the fucking demon in it. So the director, who swore he was going to shoot the producer if he ever saw him.
With an elephant gun? Montague?
Possibly with a fucking elephant
dude!
gun. He got the fucking gun from Montague.
What the hell's his name is? Anyway.
Brit.
I don't want to offend any potential Montagues out there.
If your name is Montague, please change it immediately.
Monty, you know?
Anyway, Yeah, man. So for all the director's clamor against the demon cut, uh, ultimately that's the movie that made a big impact on a lot of people's minds. Now, this was your first viewing of this movie. Give me your impressions on it. Give me any pros, negatives, whatever, man. Whatever you got, give it to me.
I like the movie. I think it has a certain specific feeling that is kind of, I don't want to say gone from film, but I'm gonna go ahead and say gone from film.
I would say, yeah, it's rare to.
So that's cool. It was a kind of a cool, sometimes when you go back and see old movies, I hadn't seen this, but just in general, when you see an older movie like The Twonky, you're like, man, what the flip? This is stinky. But this was actually kind of neat. It was kind of like when I saw Quatermass. I was like, I didn't expect to enjoy this, but I did.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I do think that this should have the demon in it. I get the idea behind having the demon be a suggestion. I get it. If done properly, it could work.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think the way the movie is laid out, it needed demon.
Yeah. There's definitely no doubt that something supernatural is going out.
Yeah.
It doesn't play it the way of vagary too much. There are moments where the main character himself, you can understand why he would want to believe that something may not be happening. But as a viewer, there really is nothing in the movie that makes you think, oh, this magician is just a charlatan and he's pulling tricks on somebody.
Yeah, I mean, he's got demon beard. Of course he's evil.
The demon beard was a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So basically, the curse of the demon is all because of this group of this conclave of scientists that has gotten together to debunk the workings of a devil worship cult leader by the name of Carswell. And Carswell has warned one person already not to do this, and that person has died under mysterious circumstances. And his partner in crime, if you will, an American, which acts, by the way, very American in this movie, because in the sense that he's kind of a smug asshole for a good chunk of the movie. He refuses to accept that something supernatural happened.
Much like Americans would.
So, yeah, and that's kind of the dynamic. The magician, the sorcerer, the cult leader, if you will, kind of comes off, and you noted this as you watched it, he kind of comes off as the more likable of the two characters to begin with. He's definitely more charming, that's for damn sure. And our protagonist, again, comes off like a smug ass that's a little pretentious.
Thinks he's all cool.
Thinks he's all badass.
Yeah, he's got a big ass suit for some reason. It's like, dude, get that shit fixed.
He's got that damn talking head suit going on.
Really
so yeah, it's an interesting dynamic in that sense. What was your reaction? Because I know you were quite adverse to the character.
Yeah, it was. I don't want to say I was annoyed with him.
The main character we're talking about.
Yeah, with the main character. But I was kind of like frustrated with him. It's just like, dude, there's a point where you got to start believing, or openly believing, because there's literally demons clawing at your feet, and you're like, it's like a cat or something. You're like, it's not a cat, dude.
Now,
so that was the thing. I think like if I could imagine like a Bogey in this role, and I would have liked him more.
Bogart.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's something about this dude that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Mind you, that kind of goes away towards the end.
Yes, and it does goes away as the role of the charming sorcerer is kind of switched around with the protagonist, and the protagonist becomes not charming, but someone that you want to survive, because the magician, the sorcerer, it turns out to be not so much in league with the demon, but
he's not like this badass that you thought he was.
Yeah, he's more under the thumb of the demon. He has power, he has influence, he has riches, but it comes at a cost, and because of that, he fears for his well-being. So he becomes kind of a coward at the end, and so that allows you to switch over and like the protagonist all the more. It's an interesting ploy. And I would like to point out, I mentioned this as we conversed about it previously, and I think this is something that a lot of people have missed. And I know in conversations with people that have seen it, this is something that is rarely brought up. But it's a line of dialogue and an interchange between the protagonist and the antagonist, where basically it's suggested by the antagonist that the protagonist knows there is something going on. It's always there. He tells him it's always there. It's just he doesn't want to accept it. And when seen through the lens of that particular line, the protagonist's reluctance and downright stubbornness to accept things, despite him already being a skeptic, it makes more sense, and he becomes less of a frustrating character. But it is such it's a line that literally just is in passing, so I always thought that was interesting. But yeah, whenever you see it again, I want you to see it through that lens and see if anything changes. And if anybody out there has already seen it or hasn't seen it, I suggest just take note of that and see how it may or may not influence your viewing of the film. It may not change, but it may. The point is, there's another thing here to discuss, and I think it's the elephant in the room
dame?
besides us. And we'll get to her. And it's this. It's the demon, not the dame. The demon, the titular demon.
Damon.
The point of controversy between the director and the producer was mainly because the director didn't want a big hokey effect.
Yeah.
And again, he wanted to play it more like, on the edge. But the effect is there, and it's used 2 times, and personally, I think it's used exceptionally well, despite the fact that, yes, the effect is not exactly the greatest. However, despite that, there's something about the effect that just fucking works.
I think it's very effective in like the wide shots.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it's coming into existence, I guess. It kind of fades in with this smoky effect, and then you just kind of see this like semi-transparent demon, and it kind of looks like he's riding a unicycle. And
because he's moving his little legs.
Yeah, and there's even like a little soundtrack that he has, which sounds like a unicycle riding, like. So watch that. Watch it under those lenses.
Unicycles.
But unicycles are terrifying, so it just fits. But it has this kind of weird, like it's just kind of floating and it's far away, and you think about seeing that at night and it'd be like, that should be horrifying.
Make you crap your fucking pants.
Yeah, I think where I don't want to say it falls apart. But I think where it's at its weakest is in the close-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like a puppet,
Yeah, it's very clearly a puppet.
And even then, I think if they had if it was just trimmed by like a couple seconds, just show it for really fast, it would have been acceptable. And it is still acceptable, mind you, especially for the time. It's just that's when it kind of breaks the illusion.
Given the limitations of the time and the budget, this thing, despite obviously being a puppet, is utilized sparingly, and when it is utilized, there's something fascinating about it. And I think the fascination comes from the fact that it does harken back to this very traditional look that even the movie suggests has been handed down throughout history. So there's something primitive about it, and it being a primitive effect kind of helps that along.
It's kind of like I know it's a very different movie and different time, but it's got that kind of like, I could see this being like one of those things that sticks in people's minds if you saw it as a kid, but it kind of reminded me of like the weird little demon effects in that Hexen movie. It's just got that weird look where you can tell it's fake, but it's still very eerie.
Yeah, there's something. It's so unnatural looking that it manages to work.
Yeah.
And there's some particularly interesting shots because the demon is very large in comparison to humans. So that alone also adds to this weird, distorted illusion of it, And there's a particular portion where he picks somebody up and tears them apart.
Yeah, and it's like a dude in a suit.
Yeah, it's a dude in the demon suit, and the only thing that doesn't work on that are the hands he has, which are tiny.
Yeah, and they're like on sticks too.
Yeah, and they're in comparison to the puppet hands, are really small, dude. They're the fucking tiny.
They're pretty bad,
but it fucking works. And two, the puppet he's holding.
The puppet is surprisingly good.
Yeah,
it's like squirming, and then I don't want to say it looked real, but it looked pretty convincing.
Yeah, it looked very convincing.
Especially, I think this is another part where like the fact that it was a dude in a suit kind of helped, because you were kind of focusing on the demon,
right?
And the little squirmy doll just looked it looked convincing. It looked kind of real, because you're looking at something else.
Then you look at something like 93's Children of the Corn 3, and they have a huge creature picking up a person, and it's just a Barbie doll, and you go, how?
You have money.
Had some money, more than they did.
Yeah.
And that's what you get?
Better tech, at least.
So it's a very impressive effect when you actually think about the context of it, especially. So that's pretty cool. So let's get to the secondary protagonist in this movie, which is a female.
The dame.
The dame, if you will. They had every opportunity, and at moments, especially through the protagonist, they almost kind of cast her in that light of the dame in the movie. But she's actually kind of the audience in, and she's the one that makes the most sense out of everything.
She's the one that knows what's going on.
Yeah.
She owns the main character like several times.
Yeah, so it's worthy to note that this female character, especially given the times, kind of plays out of the box, of the standard. And for that is kind of the most likable character in the movie. Now let's talk about some negatives in this movie. I have to point out one negative. It would be the scene with the seance. There's a point where Carswell, the magician's mother, tries to help our protagonist, and of course our protagonist being a stubborn dick, and she takes him to a medium who channels the spirits of the dead to warn our protagonist of what's going on. And of course he just thinks it's all hokum. And I believe, I'm not sure, the film was intentionally shot to make the medium look like a charlatan and a faker. If not, that actor just sucks, which he did.
I hope so, because that was definitely my reaction. I was like, man, this guy's this guy, isn't he?
It's not that he's a bad actor, it's that he just sucks as a being.
Visually.
Yeah, the whole 9 yards, dude, he just sucks.
Fix that grill, dude.
It's 10 spaces
it's
between
like
each
one tooth here and one over here.
But yeah, horrible actor, but given that this character, again, seen through the lens of the protagonist, seen through the lens of a person that doesn't want to believe rather than doesn't believe, that's the scene, I think, where that makes me think that was very intentional, because there's more than ample reason for him to go, fuck this shit.
Yeah, and then
there.
And then, like the kind of weird mom is there too, being kind of weird and shit. So, and then there's that hag that's with the guy. So yeah, it was probably intentional. But that dude still sucks.
Yeah, he sucks donkeys,
punch
dude.
His teeth off.
I think that would be my one con for this movie. That dude.
And it could have been like a really cool scene. It's just that dude.
Yeah, I agree. And there are other scenes in this movie that are pretty fucking cool, and you could see them being expounded upon. Should they ever choose to remake this movie? Like the idea of the cult that actually surrounds Carswell is kind of disturbing, because they're very, very locked into the superstitious ideas, which turn out to be real.
Yeah, and it's I don't want to say it's unexplored, but it's relatively unexplored in the movie.
Right. It's explored. It's just explored through the guy that's locked up later.
Yeah,
and the cult's just kind of a background.
With the hag.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that would have been a neat thing to
expound upon.
Yeah, that and I think if there ever is like a straight remake, it would be cool to, make Carswell a little less of a wiener towards the end. I'm telling you, make him a little bit more like Lord of Illusions guy.
So anyway,
I had to bring it.
You got anything else you want to add before final thoughts?
No, I think we hit it all.
All right. Final thoughts and the final score on this old little flick. Give it to me.
I did enjoy it. This is not the Twonky, so that's always a plus. It's got that 50s creepy feel. If you like Twilight Zone, you might like this. It's nothing like that. I'm just saying it's got that feel. I like the demon. It was cool looking. And it's one of those scenes, again, I see sticking in someone's head, especially if they saw it as a kid.
Definitely.
The main character is kind of a dickbag, but you'll ultimately end up liking him at the end, so whatever. It's a thing that if you're gonna watch it and you're gonna be annoyed, just stick to it, and it all kind of comes up together. At the end.
That's ultimately the thing. Yeah, everything makes sense ultimately.
Yeah. And then like we said, there is that lady character to kind of hold you there. That guy though, Scott Bakula would have been better. I just had to bring that back. So, I'll give this a solid. Oh, forgot to mention this movie apparently has.
I'll mention that.
Perfect score.
Yeah, I'll mention that.
With Paddington.
It's got the 100% Paddington score on Rotten Tomatoes.
I can't give it that high a score because Paddington's a perfect film. So I'll give it an 8.5. It's pretty good, and I actually would like to see like a straight remake of this. I know there's like other based on it, but a straight remake would be kind of cool.
Yeah, and this is a movie that I think with very minor tweaking could make for a justifiable remake.
And I think a remake where the demon is not shown just at the end could really work.
Yeah.
If the movie is structured that way.
This
one kind of isn't.
I agree. Somebody very competent with a slow boil could do wonders with this idea and the script. Again, with very minor tweaking, it's a very good script and it holds up incredibly well. It feels almost modern, but at the same time, it's got that old vibe. So a very unique approach. Anyway, I absolutely love this movie. It is a movie that I was afraid of revisiting because, as things are wont to do, especially with older movies, they fall apart upon rewatching. And I was very glad to, not only did it not fall apart upon rewatching, but I was like, man, this is way better than I remembered. And I thought of it very highly to begin with, and upon rewatching, I was like, dude, this is amazing. So I'm very fond of this film, and for good reason. And I think it's something that, if you're a horror fan and you haven't seen this film, this is an important film because it was an important film for all those people whose films you like.
Yeah.
And for that reason alone, this is something you should at least give an opportunity to, give a chance, take a video at it, and see where you stand on it. I have very little complaints about this movie. Literally, that fucking seance.
That
guy, teeth.
It's bad, dude.
So I'm going to give it a 9.5. Otherwise, I would have gotten a perfect score. Well, not really, because there obviously advances in the way things are structured plot-wise and
there's
sort
no CGI bear running around.
Yeah, exactly. There's little limitations that obviously hurt it a little bit, but I mean, not much. It's a pretty solid fucking movie. Now, it is worthy to note that if you do want to see this movie, try to go for I think it's a 96-minute cut, because there is an English cut, there's an American cut, there's a variety of subcuts in the middle, and then I even believe there is, I don't even know if it's official or not, a cut where they completely excise the demon, but I'm not too sure about that one. There is a DVD recently released in the Indicator series that has all the cuts available, I think. So there's alternatives. There's definitely alternatives for you to watch, and I think most of the cuts are at least the ones I've seen are pretty fucking great. The American cut, the only difference is it's a little shorter. It excises a few scenes. So, if you're viewing the main character through the lens of this is an asshole that just doesn't want to accept shit, then the shorter cut might be more to your benefit. Alternatively, if you view it in the way that he's just being reluctant to accept reality, though he does believe in it, then the longer cut will be more suitable to you. Either way, you're going to win because you get a good movie. So check this movie out if you haven't seen it. It's an essential. Tell us what you think about it. Hit like, share, subscribe, and those notification buttons because we're out.